Do you want to feel amazing after your next talk, engaging and memorable, calm in front of an audience? Then you're in the right place. Stronger Public Speaking offers massive ROI, helping you stand out, advance your career, and influence others. When Colin Ryan speaks, audiences lean in, laugh, interact, and make meaningful changes. He will show you how you can become an influential communicator, storyteller, and leader in hours, not years. Here's Colin Ryan.
Recently, I got a question from a new listener to the show who I met at a storytelling event. It's a fellow storyteller, wanted to learn more about public speaking and memorable storytelling, and asked me a question I wanted to address. And the question is, how can I share serious stories while keeping my presentation positive? This is a very interesting question because, sometimes to get at an issue, to get out an important concept, it's valuable to tell a story of how this has affected someone or groups of people or how it's affected you personally. But still, the overall tone of your talk needs to be uplifting, or I should say motivating, in the sense that people don't just get so overwhelmed that they give up, right? That they check out. You want them to go away and take action. I experience this a lot in my work around personal finance, talking about economics and class and the way it affects people and what people struggle with. But my goal is never to depress people. It's to take an honest look at what's happening and then use storytelling to create a sense of uplift. And so I love this question. And I want to give you some tips on how you can share stories, serious stories, while keeping your overall presentation or talk positive. 3 things I want to talk about are picking your moments, something I call confident vulnerability, and then testing it out. So the story in question, the story that led to our conversation about balancing the heavy with the light, comes from a story I'm working on about my experience in the healthcare system as a customer, as a receiver of it. And American healthcare is a terrible experience for most people. And I want to talk about it, but I also feel a responsibility to talk about it in a way that is productive. So drawing on my comedy background, I wanted to create a story that used humor. Now, this was not to be disrespectful or to be trivializing of the difficulties that I myself have experienced as a person with pain and with medical needs that, have put me in these rooms with all these, these unpleasant healthcare experiences most of the time. My goal was not to trivialize that. My goal was to create some lightness around the heaviness of this experience. Because I'll tell you this, when you bring this up in front of a group of people, you're going to feel the energy drop. So think about it in the context of, for you, talking about a topic that might be heavy, have a strong emotional charge. Maybe you talk about cybersecurity and you freak your audience out, right? Or if you want to teach something from your own experience, you need to find a way to balance that so that the audience isn't worried about you, right? Isn't worried that you're not okay. So picking your moments. In my story, the way I framed my 7-minute story around healthcare is I started out by sharing a number of funny examples of things that have happened, ways that you feel very grown up when you care about premiums more than you expected you ever would, or paying $1 for an appointment that is going to cost $500 and, pretending that there's no bill in the mail, right? The lengths that we go on a high deductible health plan to not go into the doctor, but to fix the problem ourselves or ignore it. These things that you can feel, these all tiptoe around a very heavy, negative thing, but I'm using humor to build a sense of connection with my audience so that I can pick the moment where I'm going to be devastating. I'm going to talk about one of the worst experiences that I ever had in healthcare because I think it represents what a lot of people experience and feel. But if I was to do 7 minutes of just that, it would be so difficult. So instead, my goal is to pick a moment and build toward that moment in a sneaky way by using humor, by using lightness, and then dropping down into that powerful moment, saying what I need to say, and then climbing back out so I end in a way where my audience still feels somewhat uplifted and somewhat hopeful. This perfectly addresses the next thing that you need, which is what I call confident vulnerability. Now, vulnerability, thanks to the work of people like Brené Brown, I think we're all aware is a very valuable and important skill and practice. It's to, show up in an authentic way to reveal that you don't have all the answers, that you're doing the best that you can, but sometimes that feels like that's not good enough. Being vulnerable means saying things that are hard to say because you know that they are important to say. You need to show in your body confidence, not vulnerability. If you are all vulnerable, the audience is going to worry about you. They're going to think you're not doing well. They're going to worry you're going to cry or you're going to break down. They're not going to listen to what you're saying because they're distracted by a sense of either empathy or discomfort and awkwardness. But you as the presenter, you as the storyteller, you have an opportunity to set the tone of the room by thinking very deliberately about what's the emotion the story is going to create and how can I show the audience that I'm okay, I'm in control of this, I know where we're going, everything is going to be fine in the context of this story that I'm telling, right? That way you get the benefit of the authenticity and the benefit of the full attention of your audience. I use this a lot in personal finance, as I mentioned, because I want people to talk about money mistakes, because I believe that money mistakes are actually money lessons, but they need to be reframed from a shameful, regrettable thing into, wow, well, actually, that's helped me save money ever since because I never made that mistake again. Or sharing that story is actually really meaningful for everyone around you because you realize we all kind of relate when it comes to money mistakes. So that's confident vulnerability. I'm initiating a vulnerable moment in the room, but I'm showing through my body language, this is great. This is good. We're having a productive conversation, smile on my face, shoulders back, eye contact. This is good. A great example of this is the comedian Gary Goldman. He did a special several years ago, made a big impression on me and on a lot of people. It was called The Great Depression. It was all about his mental health struggles, and as a comedian, on the other side of a lot of that, fortunately for him, he's now just very funny and very powerful in the way he talks about it. And so he would tell these stories about, being bullied or being ostracized or feeling like something was wrong, but he would do it through humor first, and secondly, with a smile, with a sense of mirth. And so what you saw in those moments was a person who was okay, and you didn't have to worry. You could go where he wanted to lead you. This sets up the third important thing. So we've talked about picking your moments, and we've talked about using confident vulnerability. This third one is equally important, and this is where it all kind of comes from. And Gary Goldman's a perfect setup for this, which is a skill comedians learn, which is to test it out first. All right. So what comedians will do is they'll take an idea and they'll do it in an open mic, and they'll be studying the audience to see what's working, what's not, what's funny, what's boring, they're letting the audience tell them. As a public speaker, as a storyteller, do the same thing. Assemble a practice audience. Get some people together who can give you some honest feedback, and then pay attention to their reactions. They're going to tell you so much. Getting back to my example of this healthcare story, the person who asked this question that led to this episode had made a comment to me like, you mentioned that's the first time you've told it. It's really strong already. It really works. Here's my confession. It's not the first time I've told it. It's the second time. I don't really count that first time because it was so raw and so messy, and it was for a small open mic audience, but it was extremely important because it allowed me to see how the audience felt, where the energy dipped and where it elevated, and to sort of understand how I was playing with the audience's experience in a sense, like what's the music that I'm making? All right. What's the song that I'm trying to write? with this story. And no one is going to tell you that better than an audience. So assemble a practice audience is a key tool. Test out your ideas is a key tool, because then you start to be able to predict, here's where it's going to be funny. Here's where it's going to be really heavy. Here's where it's going to be overly serious. And how do I manage that so that the overall experience is positive? I love to share this quote from a person I jokingly call our most famous public speaker, which is Maya Angelou. I'm sure she did some public speaking. I don't know the context in which she shared this quote specifically, but I love it for public speaking. She said, "People will not remember what you said. People will not remember what you did. What they'll remember is how you made them feel." I 100% endorse that idea that when it comes to our public communication, telling stories, giving presentations, giving keynote talks, our goal is to be very cognizant of and in control of how the audience feels when they are listening to what we are sharing. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is that the idea that you want to get across lives on in the mind of the person you share it with or the audience you share it with. I'm going to say that again. At the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that the idea you're trying to get across lives on in the mind of your listeners. And the way to do that is to manage the experience so that they keep thinking about it, want to keep thinking about it, take action on it, and remember what you shared. This is why storytelling is such a key tool in communicating in a memorable way. So I wanted to share that with you because I don't want you to fear sharing a serious story with an audience. I also don't want you to avoid sharing a serious story. And most importantly, I don't want you to just share it and not get the benefits of doing it strategically. So if you do these three things, you're going to have a much better experience. Pick your moments, use confident vulnerability, test it on a practice audience. You're going to see results right away. Good luck, and tell me how it goes.
Do you have a speaking opportunity coming up? Would you like to feel amazing after your next talk? Check out our free resources at speaknextweek.com. Or speak to Colin personally to get a free recommendation on what you can do next to become a stronger public speaker. Because in less time than you think, you can transform public speaking from something you have to do into something you love to do.